For as long as humans have had recorded history, we have strived to categorise whatever we come across, whether it be plant, animal, or fellow man. This act of stereotyping comes instinctively to us. Quite simply, we take a shortcut. We look at someone, take what we immediately recognise, and assign to them traits based on our personal attitudes, values, and beliefs. This has both positive and negative implications. On one hand, we retain and pass on knowledge, which helps us navigate social and private life. On the flip side, however, what is unknown, and whatever doesn't fit into the majority's view of what is acceptable and safe, risks becoming ostracised, feared, and even hated, forced to the outskirts and viewed with mistrust, sometimes even to the point of violence. Fringe subcultures are a perfect example of this. While some subcultures are obviously targeted more than others, even simple things like harmless stylistic choices can sometimes draw a surprising amount of hostility. To embrace an identity that may make you a victim takes a great deal of courage. Today, we'll be talking to a member of the goth subculture and learn how she aligns her life with her stylistic choices. The goth subculture, as it's known today, began as an offshoot of punk rock that mixed with a flair for the theatrical and a fondness of campy horror movies. While gothic themes have been present throughout history, it was in the late 70s and early 80s that these ideas really came together. Goth draws from many elements, appropriating 19th century Gothic literature, Victorian fashions, horror movies, really anything from any time period that could be considered decadent and eclectic. Nowadays, there are many different variations of the subculture, leaving it open to the interpretation of the individual.
Hey, I'm Grace. I'm 20 years old, I'm a Christian, I'm an apprentice baker, and I'm a goth.
What? When we first met, I was very surprised to find that you were both a goth and a Christian. Now, those were two things that I really didn't think could mix. Could you just give me a brief rundown of your faith?
Sure. So I was raised in a conservative Christian household. My family and I, we believe that, Jesus is the Son of God, that we're all, in desperate need of God's grace, that Jesus came and died for us to save us from our sins. And when I was 14 or 15, I decided that, this is what I believe. So now it's just a case of taking that faith and growing and maturing in it for the rest of my life.
So how did an innocent Christian girl come to find the goth subculture?
So my uncle's a photographer, and the magazine he shoots for did an article on goths in 2006. And I was 12, I read it, and the pictures and just everything, it was like my people, the hair, the makeup, it was just, I loved it.
How did the people around you initially react to this? Say, family, friends, just your church?
So I think all of those people, my friends thought it was, cool. I think everyone else, because I was 14 when I started trying to emulate goth, they just thought it was like a teenage angst phase.
Okay. What do you think of the stereotypes that surround goth subculture? For instance, the occult or Satanism?
I get where it comes from, the Halloween-y look. It irritates me a little. You can't just tar everyone with the same brush. You can't take what you see and just assume that that's definitely what someone's going to be like. It's, pick any group and their stereotype. It doesn't apply to every single person.
So how do you reconcile the stereotypes of goth subculture with your faith?
I've sort of just had to not care, if that makes sense. If I'm walking down the street and some stranger, in a glance, definitely knows exactly, who I am as a person because of what they see, that's their prerogative, and I don't care because, what you see isn't necessarily everything about that person. Everyone is intricate in their personality, their beliefs. You can't just make a snap decision.
Grace and her story remind us that there's a truth to the saying, you can't judge a book by its cover. Many people incorrectly associate the goth aesthetic with Satanism or black magic, but as Grace demonstrates, these things aren't necessarily connected at all. Grace also shows us that while there are challenges involved, it is possible to embrace differing cultures, even ones that historically don't have much overlap.